Our mortals. Before this video starts, I have an important announcement. Not so long ago, I made a short film, which is called Obsessive Anguish. It's a psychological drama with the elements of absurd. I would be really appreciated if you watch this short film, because it's my first ever serious work in the area of short filmmaking. I will attach the link in the description. And also, there will be the link in the end of this video. I would be really happy if you watch it.
Imagine for a moment as if you're hanging in the air. The heavy concrete ceiling is above your head and the river is beneath you. You're surrounded by the vast forest in the night time. The walls of naked trees are watching you with the ancient power of millions of eyes. You're levitating like a rag doll. At the same time, there is no rope around your neck. Suddenly, you're falling. You're resting on the surface of the river that absorbs you like an infinitely deep vortex. You're submerging lower and lower and lower and lower until there is nothing left of you, and you became one with the bleakness of earth that once gave you your life.
Русская Хтонь. What is that? To make the long story short, it's a modern internet term that describes the Russian nihilism. Sometimes in a philosophical way, and sometimes it is used literally to describe the bleak atmosphere of everyday life in Russia.
Unfortunately, the term Русская Хтонь is impossible to translate in the foreign languages. You can only interpret it to give you the understanding of what it might feel like. Русская Хтонь can be interpreted as Russian nihilism, Russian despair, Russian decadence, or my favorite one, Russian anguish. Well, initially, people described something as Хтонь, something that is mystical and demonic, something that is beyond human comprehension. People described something that lurks deeply in the dark, in the shadows, in the nocturnal forests. Often, people, they referred to monsters from the Russian folklore. So this is what the term Хтонь originally means.
The main subject of this video is pretty abstract. Here, I would like to reflect on what is the Russian anguish. I think all Russians feel it in this or that way, even if they've never heard of the term. In my opinion, foreigners will never understand the true meaning of the term Russian anguish. Despite that, I will try to explain it in this video. Obviously, some parts I will grotesquely exaggerate, so don't take it all too literally. Let's start from far away. What is Russia? It's the country on the very east of Europe that also has its borders next to Asia. I think this is the good foundation to push away from in order to understand the Russian anguish. Since birth, being Russian means stepping into the unknown and searching for something that you probably won't even find. Russians are always trying to philosophize about what is ours, always searching for the new paths.
Russia is a very unique place. It's the place where paganism, Christianity, communism, and capitalism are mixing together into something really crazy. One interesting thing is that Russia is the only place where you might go to one of the local villages and you might see an old lady there with a horseshoe on the front door of her house. And if you enter that house, there you will also see a Christian icon in one corner and a portrait of Stalin in another corner. Why? Just for the case if one of these things will actually work.
Also, many people argue whether Russia is Eastern Europe or Northern Asia. Even though the answer is obvious, we don't eat with sticks, we don't write with hieroglyphs, and ethnic Russians don't look like Asians.
Well, as you see, that I personally, I'm one of those people who considers Russia part of the Eastern Europe. And it's my opinion. So I'm sure that someone will probably write in the comments stuff like, oh, but I'm living in Russia, somewhere in the Altai Mountains. I live in a village of 100 people, and everyone there looks like an Asian. This is why all Russians are Asians. Please do me a favor, shut the fuck up.
Asian part of Russia is just the result of our ancestors colonizing East, and most ethnic Russians are living in the western part of Russia. Russia is obviously part of the Eastern Europe, so I guess at least this question is being answered.
One interesting thing that I noticed about Russia is that it is definitely the most post-apocalyptic country in the world. There were so many events in Russian history that can be described as the different versions of apocalypse.
Here are some of the most known of those events. Forced Christianization combined with regular Mongol attacks, collapse of the Russian Empire, both world wars, collapse of USSR. Basically, the modern Russia is the result of those events, and in some regions it even looks like a post-apocalyptic wasteland where people are surviving the way they can. I didn't live in Russia for 11 years, but I still remember the times when I lived there. I was born in the southern part of Siberia. Name of the city won't tell you anything, so I won't mention it. There were positive and negative moments. What I clearly remember is the old Soviet buildings, park zones with the sculptures of Lenin, also school where I was taught by the Soviet education program. Such kind of entourage creates the atmosphere of post-apocalypse in the country because since childhood you feel as if you're growing up on the ashes of the fallen empire and the unrealized dreams of your ancestors. Everything that our grandparents tried to build suddenly turned into ruins, and those ruins are the current state of our homeland.
There's one thing that I noticed, pretty interesting thing, as a Russian who was born in the southern Siberia. Many of those who are living in Siberia and who were born and raised there, they're the descendants of those who were sent to Siberia as a form of punishment. This is one of the reasons why I never understood Russian patriotism from those people who were born in Siberia. If you disagree with me, it's your opinion, you have full right for your opinion, but here is my opinion. I never felt like a patriot of the place where I was born. Because the thing is that you were born in Siberia, and very probably your ancestors were sent there as a prisoners, as a form of punishment. And now, because of that, you were born in Siberia. So basically, the area where you were born is a literal prison. Prison where the winters can be minus 40 or even minus 50, a place where it can snow even in June. It's like seriously, it always felt weird to me. Pretty often I thought about it back in the days. Just imagine you were born in the Alcatraz, like literally. And the thing is that people around you, like your fellow prisoners, or like security guards there, or a warden, they all are telling you that this is the place that you must be patriot of. This is the place that you must be proud of, that you must live in this place forever, because you were born here. But the thing is that you were born in a literal fucking prison. Your ancestors were sent to that place as a form of punishment, but now you're here. And you're a patriot of this place. Pretty cynical irony to think about it in this way.
I don't live in Russia for 11 years already, but it doesn't mean that I can't understand such term as the Russian anguish, because I'm still Russian and wherever you go you always take yourself with you. I think Russian immigrants are the only ones who move from their homeland because they always felt like strangers there. At the same time, wherever Russians are moving, the feeling of being a stranger never leaves.
It's a very unique feeling, you know? It's something that makes Russian people who they are. Even during immigration, for example, if an American person moves to Canada, he will feel like at home there. For him, I think it would be very easy to adopt for him there. Or for example, if a German moves to Norway, I doubt that anyone would ever notice the difference if he lives there for some time. But the thing is that Russians are a different case. Wherever we go, doesn't matter whether more Western Europe or Asia or Africa or America, wherever we go, we often feel like strangers there. We often might feel like strangers in our own homelands as well. This is one thing that can also be attributed to so-called the Russian anguish. It's about finding your own place in the world, but in a very unique way. Because the thing is that Russia is located near Asia, it's located near Europe, and often people don't recognize Russia as Europe. Also, people don't recognize Russia as Asia as well. So basically, for Russian, it's a very normal thing, trying to look for your own place in the world and trying to understand who you are, who you belong to. It can be attributed to any nation, but the way Russians are experiencing it, I think it might be unique. That kind of feeling of being a stranger, even in your own homeland, some people who experience it, they might fall into depression and existential crisis, but for other people it might be a motivation. You can also find that feeling in many cases in the Russian art, especially when it comes to the scenarios in Russian art where idealist ideas are colliding with the nihilist ideas, that kind of confrontation between an idealist and a nihilist. One more interesting thing about Russian art, people often find it very depressive. In many cases they would be correct about it. So-called Russian anguish, it motivates many Russian artists to create their art. It gives them that kind of inner conflict. And about Russian art, I see something more. Very often, Russian artists, for example, Russian film directors, they try to touch subjects that are about society, about the life of a Russian person, about the typical average Russian citizen. They try to open up about different societal problems like drug usage, alcoholism, homelessness, finding your own place in that gloomy industrial post-Soviet Russian society.
I remember some nostalgic memories when I went to the nature with my grandmother when I was a kid. We went to fish, also to gather mushrooms and berries. It was very nice. Often Russian art that depicts nature reminds me of those memories. Memories of mystical, but at the same time, wonderful Russian forests and vast steppes.
I remember back in 2020, I released my debut album, which is called The History of One Disease. Back then, I did not live in Russia, as I mentioned before. The term Russian anguish inspired me and was an emotional fuel to create that album, even though I did not know about the term Russian anguish. This is one pretty peculiar thing that even if you don't know about the term, you still might feel it. You might feel it deep inside of yourself. Feels like some kind of primal instinct, maybe. I would even call it ancient instinct. I would even say more. The term Russian anguish, aesthetically, it inspires me a lot when I'm creating art. It happened very often, even in those moments when I felt positive.
If you would like to know more about the Russian anguish in Russian art, then you can watch my video about the Russian music iceberg, where I mention lots of interesting underground music. The link on the Russian music iceberg will be in the end of this video.
If you enjoyed this video, press like, leave a comment, and subscribe to my channel to help it grow. You can also buy my music on Bandcamp to support my YouTube channel. To don't miss any new videos, you can press the bell button, and I will be very grateful for it. All links will be in the description below. Farewell, stay out of hell.